Did you know that nearly 88% of adults over 70 in the US struggle with recurring negative thoughts that directly impact their happiness and quality of life? The truth is, these thoughts often sneak into our daily routines without us even realizing it. And while aging brings wisdom, it can also bring habits of worry, regret, or self-doubts that silently steal joy. In today's video, Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Miller. Welcome to Matthew Miller TV, the channel where we explore practical, science-backed ways to live longer, healthier, and happier lives. If you care about your health and well-being, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss valuable insights designed to help you and your loved ones. To really understand how these negative thought patterns are shaping your daily happiness, let's go through them one by one. I'll share real examples many seniors over 70 experience, why these thoughts are so common, how they quietly affect both mind and body, and most importantly, simple steps you can take to replace them with healthier, more positive habits. So let's dive in, starting with the very first mistake that almost everyone struggles with, mistake 1. Dwelling on regret. I want to start with one of the most common patterns I've seen among seniors over 70, and honestly, it's something I've even caught myself doing at times, dwelling on regret. Let me share a story. I once spoke with a gentleman named Richard, 72 years old, who often found himself sitting on his porch in the evenings, replaying the same scenes from decades ago. He would say, "If only I had saved more money. If only I had been there more for my kids when they were younger. If only I had taken better care of my health." These thoughts would loop endlessly, like a movie reel he couldn't switch off. And while he thought he was just reflecting, what he was really doing was reliving old pain day after day. Why does this happen so often after 70? Part of it is natural. Retirement brings more quiet moments, fewer distractions, and more time to think. Add to that the cultural idea that older adults should look back on life, and it's easy to see why regret surges. The brain is wired to reflect on unfinished business, and when there's space, those memories rise up. Many seniors also feel they've run out of time to correct past mistakes, so the regrets feel heavier than ever. But here's the hard truth. Dwelling on regret has real consequences, both mentally and physically. Studies from the American Psychological Association show that persistent rumination, going over negative memories again and again, is strongly linked to depression in older adults. Researchers at the University of California even found that seniors who focus heavily on regrets have higher cortisol levels, the stress hormone, which over time can weaken the immune system and raise blood pressure. In fact, one long-term study showed that seniors who frequently replayed regrets reported 30% lower overall life satisfaction compared to peers who practiced acceptance. And beyond the science, regret steals joy from the present moment. If your mind is constantly anchored in the past, it's nearly impossible to fully appreciate the beauty of today, the laugh of a grandchild, the comfort of a morning coffee, or even the peace of simply waking up to another sunrise. So how do we break this cycle? The solution isn't to pretend regrets don't exist. That usually backfires. Instead, it's about reframing and redirecting. One powerful approach is gratitude journaling. Each evening, write down 3 small things you're grateful for that happened that day. They don't have to be big. It could be, I enjoyed a good phone call with a friend, or the soup I made turned out just right. This simple shift in focus trains your brain to notice what's working now instead of what went wrong in the past. Another strategy is to transform regret into a lesson. Ask yourself, what did this mistake teach me, and how can I share that wisdom with others? For example, Richard, the man I mentioned earlier, began volunteering at a local community center, mentoring young dads about work-life balance. He told me, "I can't go back and change the past, but I can use what I've learned to help someone else not make the same mistakes." That shift didn't erase his regrets, but it gave them a purpose. And perhaps the most freeing practice is self-forgiveness. Many seniors hold themselves to impossible standards, replaying moments when they weren't perfect. But forgiveness doesn't mean excusing mistakes. It means choosing not to let them define you anymore. A helpful exercise is to write a letter to your younger self, acknowledging the pain but also offering compassion. You might write, "I know you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time." You don't even have to share the letter. The act of writing it can bring powerful emotional release. The takeaway here is simple. Regret is a natural part of aging, but it doesn't have to control your happiness. The past is fixed, but your relationship with it is not. By shifting from rumination to gratitude, from self-blame to self-compassion, you reclaim the ability to enjoy life right now. If you catch yourself stuck in that loop of, "if only," remember this. The fact that you're here, breathing, listening, and still learning means your story isn't finished yet. Every day is a page you can write differently. Mistake 2. Constant worry about the future. Another negative thought pattern that I see very often among seniors over 70 is constant worry about the future. Let me paint a picture. Mary, a 74-year-old widow, used to tell me that she couldn't fall asleep most nights. Her mind would race with questions like, what if my health gets worse? What if I fall and no one is around? What if my savings run out before I do? What if I become a burden to my children? She admitted she spent more time imagining worst-case scenarios than actually enjoying the day she was in. Why does this happen? Part of it is human nature. Our brains are designed to scan for danger, even when none is present. For older adults, the fear of uncertainty can feel especially heavy. Aging brings very real concerns: declining health, medical expenses, loss of independence, or the reality of living alone after a partner passes away. It's normal to want reassurance about the future. But what often happens is that worry turns into a habit. The mind gets stuck rehearsing fears instead of solutions, and that steals peace from the present. The consequences of chronic worry are more serious than most people realize. Research from Harvard shows that older adults who constantly worry about health and finances have significantly higher levels of chronic stress hormones. That stress isn't just emotional, it directly impacts the body, leading to higher blood pressure, increased risk of heart disease, digestive issues, and even weaker immunity. A study published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine found that seniors with high worry patterns had a 24% greater risk of developing dementia compared to those with calmer mindsets. And beyond the physical, worry robs people of joy. Think about it. If you spend all day worrying about what might happen tomorrow, you never fully experience these simple pleasures of today. Mary once told me she skipped her granddaughter's recital because she couldn't stop thinking about her blood pressure numbers. The irony is, she missed a real moment of joy because of an imagined threat. So, how do we handle this? The first step is to differentiate between planning and worrying. Planning is useful, for example, setting up a health checkup or creating a financial budget. Worry, on the other hand, is repetitive thinking that doesn't lead to action. When you catch yourself worrying, ask, is this a problem I can do something about right now, or is this just my mind spinning? If it's actionable, make a small step. If it's not, gently remind yourself that not every thought deserves your energy. Another powerful tool is mindfulness, focusing on the present moment. This doesn't have to mean sitting cross-legged for an hour. It can be as simple as taking a 10-minute walk and noticing the colors of the trees, the sound of birds, or the feel of your breath. Johns Hopkins University reviewed dozens of studies and found that mindfulness practices reduced anxiety and stress levels in older adults by up to 38%. It's not about ignoring the future, but about grounding yourself in what's real right now. Mary, the woman I mentioned earlier, started practicing what she called her 1-minute reset. Whenever she felt her mind spiraling into what-if scenarios, she paused, took a deep breath, and named 5 things she could see and hear around her. That simple trick helped pull her back into the present. Over time, her worry episodes got shorter and less intense. Another practical step is building a worry schedule. It may sound odd, but set aside 15 minutes in the day, maybe in the afternoon, where you allow yourself to write down every worry. Once the time is up, you close a notebook and move on. This technique helps your brain stop looping worries all day because it knows you have a designated parking spot for them. And perhaps most importantly, don't go through it alone. Talking through your fears with a trusted friend, counselor, or faith group often shrinks them down to size. Sharing worries out loud transforms them from endless loops in your head to problems that can be understood and sometimes even solved. The takeaway here is clear. The future is uncertain for everyone, but worry won't make it safer. It will only make today harder. By practicing mindfulness, distinguishing between planning and worry, and finding small ways to stay grounded, you can protect both your peace of mind and your health. So next time your brain whispers, "What if?" try gently answering, even if "I will handle it." Because the truth is, you've already handled 7 decades of life's challenges. You're stronger and more capable than your worries want you to believe. Mistake 3. Holding on to regrets. One of the most common patterns I see among seniors over 70 is the tendency to hold on to regrets from the past. These regrets come in many shapes: words left unsaid, opportunities missed, relationships that ended badly, or simply the feeling of, I should have done more. Let me share a story. Evelyn is 74, a retired nurse who spent her whole life caring for others. She raised 3 children as a single mother and worked long, exhausting hours. When I first met her, she told me, I can't stop thinking about the time I missed with my kids. I regret not being there for their school plays or soccer games. I gave my patients everything, but what about my own family? Her voice cracked when she said, sometimes I feel like I failed them. Evelyn's story is powerful, but she's not alone. In fact, research from Cornell University shows that regrets are most often about relationships, not careers or money. And seniors tend to hold on to those regrets longer because as we age, time feels shorter, making missed chances seem heavier. Why is this mistake so common? Part of it is perspective. With age comes wisdom, but also more years to look back on decades of choices, both good and bad. Our brains also tend to replay emotional memories more vividly. That means painful regrets can feel just as raw at 70 as they did at 30. But here's the danger. When regrets take up too much mental space, they can slowly drain present happiness. Studies have shown that older adults who dwell heavily on regrets report higher levels of depression, lower life satisfaction, and even poorer physical health. Constantly reliving mistakes increases stress hormones like cortisol, which in turn can damage sleep, weaken the immune system, and accelerate aging. And beyond health, regrets keep people stuck in the past instead of enjoying the present. Evelyn, for example, avoided family gatherings for a while. She told herself, they probably still resent me. But the truth was, her children had long forgiven her. It was Evelyn who hadn't forgiven herself. So, how can we break free from regrets? The first step is acknowledgement. Pretending regrets don't exist only gives them more power. Write them down in a journal. I regret missing time with my kids. I regret not saying I love you more often. Putting regrets on paper moves them from swirling thoughts into something you can work with. Next comes self-forgiveness. This is not about excusing past mistakes, but about recognizing your humanity. Ask yourself, did I make the best choice I could with the resources and knowledge I had at the time? Most often the answer is yes. Evelyn, for example, worked long hours because she had to keep food on the table and a roof over her children's heads. Was that ideal? No. Was it done out of love and responsibility? Absolutely. Another key step is shifting perspective. Instead of focusing on what was lost, focus on what was gained or learned. Evelyn realized that by working hard, she showed her children resilience, dedication, and strength. Those lessons shaped them into caring, hard-working adults. Her regret of not being there enough transformed into pride that she gave them a model of perseverance. Practical tools can help too. Therapists often recommend a simple exercise: write a letter to your younger self. In that letter, offer understanding and compassion. Say the words you wish someone had told you back then. You were doing your best. You didn't fail. You sacrificed. Even if you never show it to anyone, this process can be deeply healing. Community also plays a role. Evelyn eventually opened up to her children about her feelings of regret. To her surprise, they responded with warmth. Her daughter said, "Mom, we never felt unloved. You were always our rock." That conversation helped Evelyn let go of years of guilt. It showed her that sometimes the weight of regret exists only in our own minds, not in others. Letting go of regrets doesn't mean forgetting them. It means choosing not to let them define your present. As Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield once said, forgiveness is giving up all hope of a better past. We can rewrite history, but we can decide how much power the past holds over today. Here's the key takeaway. Life after 70 can still be full of joy, connection, and meaning, but only if we stop living in yesterday. Regrets are natural, but they should be lessons, not prisons. Every morning we wake up as another chance to choose peace instead of punishment. Evelyn, after working through her regrets, now spends every Sunday cooking dinner for her children and grandchildren. She laughs, tells stories, and enjoys the moments. Mistake 4. Negative self-talk. Have you ever noticed the way you speak to yourself? Not out loud, but inside your head. For many people over 70, that inner voice can be surprisingly harsh. It says things like, "I'm too old to learn this. I can't do anything right anymore. I'm just a burden now." This constant stream of negative self-talk may seem small, but it has a huge impact on happiness, confidence, and even health. Let me share a story. Marae is 76, a grandmother of 5. She used to love gardening, but arthritis made it harder for her to kneel and plant flowers the way she used to. Instead of adjusting, she started telling herself, "I'm useless now. I can't even do the one thing I enjoyed." Over time, that thought became a daily script. Whenever she forgot where she left her keys or struggled to use her smartphone, she sighed and muttered, "I'm so stupid." The truth, Mary wasn't stupid, and she certainly wasn't useless. But her inner voice convinced her otherwise. Why does this happen so often as we age? One reason is cultural. Society often glorifies youth and productivity, while overlooking the wisdom and resilience of older adults. Those subtle messages, commercials that focus only on younger faces. Jokes about senior moments can creep into our thinking until we start repeating them ourselves. Another reason is habit. If you've been self-critical your whole life, those patterns don't automatically stop at 70. In fact, they can intensify as challenges like health issues, memory changes, or physical limitations appear. But here's what research shows. Negative self-talk is not harmless. Studies from the University of Michigan found that people who frequently engage in self-critical thinking experience higher stress levels, weaker immune response, and worse overall mental health. Negative self-talk increases anxiety, fuels depression, and lowers motivation. Over time, it can even affect the brain's chemistry, making it harder to feel joy. Think of it this way. If you had a friend who constantly told you you're not good enough, you're too old, you're failing, would you want to spend time with them? Probably not. And yet, many of us let that exact voice live rent-free in our minds. So what can we do to stop it? The first step is awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. For one day, pay attention to your inner dialogue. Write down every negative thought you catch. I can't do this. I look terrible. Nobody cares what I think. By the end of the day, you may be shocked at how often that voice speaks. The second step is challenging the thought. When Mary said, "I'm useless," I asked her, "Is that 100% true? Can you think of even one way you are still useful?" She laughed softly and said, "Well, I help my granddaughter with her homework every week." Exactly. The brain tends to exaggerate negativity. Challenging those thoughts helps shrink their power. The third step is replacing the script. Instead of letting "I can't" play on repeat, create a new line. Change "I am" to "old" to learn gives "I am still capable of learning, just at my own pace." Change "I'm of burden" gives "I bring love, wisdom, and presence to my family." Change "I'm useless" gives "I still matter, and my experiences have value." This isn't about fake positivity. It's about realistic, compassionate self-talk. Another powerful technique is speaking to yourself as you would speak to a loved one. Imagine your grandchild making a mistake. Would you say, "You're so stupid"? Of course not. You'd probably say, "It's okay, everyone forgets sometimes." Treat yourself with the same kindness. Science backs this up. Research on self-compassion from Dr. Kristen Neff shows that people who practice gentler self-talk have lower stress, higher resilience, and greater overall well-being. Self-compassion doesn't make you weaker, it makes you stronger, because it fuels motivation without shame. Mary eventually practiced this. Instead of saying, "I can't garden anymore," she reframed it, "I can still garden, just differently." She bought raised flower beds so she didn't have to kneel. She even invited her grandkids to help, turning what once felt like a loss into a new family tradition. Her smile returned, not because her arthritis disappeared, but because she changed the story in her head. And that's the real lesson here. The voice you listen to most is your own. If it's critical and cruel, your days will feel heavy. But if it's kind and encouraging, even small challenges become manageable. So here's the takeaway. Stop being your own worst critic. At 70, 75, or 80, you deserve to be your own best friend. Notice the negative scripts, challenge them, and replace them with words of truth and compassion. Because happiness doesn't come from a perfect body, perfect memory, or perfect circumstances. Happiness comes from how we choose to speak to ourselves every single day. Mistake 5. Comparing yourself to others. Let me ask you a tough question. How often do you look at someone your age, maybe a neighbor, an old friend, or even someone on TV and think, "They're doing so much better than me"? This habit of comparing yourself to others is incredibly common. Especially after 70, maybe you see a friend who still plays golf while your knees hurt too much. Or you scroll through Facebook and notice classmates from decades ago traveling the world, while you're mostly at home. In those moments, it's easy to feel like you've somehow fallen behind. Let me share a story. Harold, 73, told me about attending his high school reunion. He was excited at first, but as he walked around the room he started noticing things. One friend looked younger, another was bragging about their vacation home, and yet another talked about running marathons. Harold thought to himself, look at them, they've accomplished so much, and me, I'm just ordinary. By the end of the night, instead of enjoying the reunion, he went home feeling small, disappointed, and strangely ashamed. The truth is, Harold is far from ordinary. He raised a family, worked steadily for years, and even volunteers at a local food bank. But because he compared his life to a highlight reel of others, he lost sight of his own worth. Why does this happen? Part of it is human nature. We're wired to measure ourselves against others. But today, comparisons are everywhere, not just at reunions, but on TV, social media, and even in casual conversations. And unfortunately, the older we get, the easier it becomes to compare our limitations to someone else's strengths. The problem is, comparisons rarely make us feel good. A study from the University of Michigan found that older adults who frequently compare themselves to peers report lower life satisfaction and higher rates of depression. It's what psychologists call downward spirals of social comparison. Here's the trap. Comparisons are almost never fair. We compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. Harold only saw his classmates' successes, not their struggles. The marathon runner, he quietly battles loneliness. The wealthy retiree, he has health issues he doesn't talk about. Everyone carries challenges, but comparisons hide that truth. And beyond emotions, comparisons actually damage health. Constantly feeling less than raises stress levels, lowers immunity, and even shortens lifespan. Why? Because feelings of inadequacy trigger the body's fight-or-flight response. Over time, that drains energy and undermines resilience. So how do we stop this habit? The first step is awareness. Catch yourself when you're comparing. Ask, am I measuring myself fairly, or am I only seeing a tiny slice of their life? The second step is gratitude. Shift focus from what others have to what you already have. Harold started a simple practice. Every night he wrote down 3 things he appreciated that day: a phone call from his daughter, the smell of fresh coffee, the laughter of his grandkids. Over time, this shifted his mindset. He began to see his own life as full, instead of lacking. The third step is self-definition. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me now? For Harold, it wasn't marathons or vacation homes. It was being present with his grandchildren, giving back through volunteering, and maintaining his health. Once he defined success on his own terms, other people's achievements lost their sting. Another powerful tool is limiting exposure. If scrolling through social media leaves you feeling less than, take a break, or choose to follow accounts that inspire rather than discourage. You don't need a constant feed of comparisons when real joy is often found offline. And finally, practice compassion both for yourself and others. Instead of seeing a peer's success as a threat, see it as proof that good things are possible. And when you feel envy, don't judge yourself harshly. Just notice it, breathe, and return to gratitude. Harold eventually embraced this. Instead of comparing, he started celebrating. When a friend shared vacation photos, he said, "That's wonderful, tell me about it." And then he shared his own joys, his granddaughter's first piano recital, his garden blooming in spring. He stopped playing the comparison game and started playing the connection game. Here's the takeaway. Comparison is the thief of joy. At 70, 75, or 80, your happiness shouldn't depend on how you measure up to someone else's journey. It should depend on how fully you embrace your own. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, "They're ahead of me," pause. Remember, you are not behind. You are not less. You are not failing. You are living your story, with its own richness and meaning. Because in the end, life isn't about winning a race. It's about savoring the moments, cherishing the people you love, and finding peace in the path that's yours alone. Mistake 6. Fear of the future as we age. One of the heaviest burdens many people carry isn't just about the past, it's about the future. It's the fear of what's coming next. This fear shows up in many ways: worrying about declining health, wondering if money will run out, thinking about who will take care of you if you can't take care of yourself, or even quietly fearing death itself. These thoughts are natural, but when fear becomes constant, it robs you of the ability to enjoy the present. Let me share a story. Diane, 71, confessed during one of our conversations. I wake up at 3 a.m. almost every night. My mind races. What if I get Alzheimer's? What if I fall and no one's there? What if I become a burden to my children? She told me she often felt paralyzed by those what-if questions. Is a sad part. Diane was healthy, active, and financially stable, but fear made her feel like her future was already dark and doomed. Why is this mistake so common? Part of it is uncertainty. The future has always been unknown, but as we age, that unknown feels closer and heavier. We see friends or spouses dealing with illness, and we imagine ourselves in their place. Another reason is cultural silence. In the US, we don't often talk openly about aging, dying, or preparing for later stages of life. When something stays hidden, fear fills the gap. But here, that's the truth. Fear of the future doesn't protect us, it hurts us. Research shows that chronic worry raises cortisol, the stress hormone. High cortisol over time contributes to heart disease, weakened immunity, and even memory loss. Ironically, fearing dementia too much can actually harm the very brain we want to protect. And beyond the physical, fear shrinks joy. Diane admitted she stopped traveling because she thought, what if I get sick while I'm away? She stopped joining group hikes thinking, what if I can't keep up? Her life became smaller, not because of her health, but because of her fear. So how do we address this? The first step is naming the fear. Write it down. I'm afraid of losing independence. I'm afraid of running out of money. I'm afraid of being forgotten. Putting it on paper reduces the power of those vague shadows in your mind. The second step is planning where possible. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but planning restores control. For example, if you worry about money, give talk with a financial advisor even briefly to set a clear plan. If you worry about health, schedule regular checkups, stay active, and create a support system with family or friends. If you worry about caregivers, explore options like advance directives or discuss your wishes openly with loved ones. Planning doesn't eliminate every risk, but it replaces helplessness with preparation. The third step is reframing. Instead of asking, what if everything goes wrong? Also ask, what if things go right? What if you stay healthier longer than you expect? What if your later years become a time of deep connection and growth? Many seniors do experience exactly that, but fear blinds us from seeing the possibility. The fourth step is staying present. Practices like mindfulness, prayer, or simply daily gratitude can anchor you in today. Diane began starting each morning with a simple sentence, today I am alive, and today is enough. That one shift helped calm her racing thoughts. Another important step is talking about it. When Diane finally opened up to her daughter about her fears, she cried, but she also felt lighter. Her daughter hugged her and said, Mom, you're not a burden. We'll face whatever comes together. That conversation didn't erase uncertainty, but it replaced isolation with love. And here's the key. Fear loses its grip when faced with truth, action, and connection. Eventually, Diane took a brave step. She booked a trip she had been putting off for years, a short cruise with her best friend. She admitted she was nervous, but she went anyway. And you know what? She laughed, danced, and came back saying, I almost forgot what joy feels like. Fear shrank, not because the future was certain, but because she chose to live in the present. Here, as the takeaway. The future will always be unknown, but fear doesn't have to control how you live today. At 70, 75, or 80, life is still full of possibilities. Yes, challenges may come, but so will moments of laughter, love, and meaning. You don't need to wait for perfect certainty to enjoy them. So if fear whispers, what if? Answer back, then I'll handle it when it comes. For now, I choose to live. Because happiness is not found in predicting the future. It's found in fully living the present. So, we've just walked through the 6 most common negative thought mistakes that nearly 88% of seniors over 70 make, from self-criticism and comparison, to regret, guilt, worry, and even fear of the future. Now, let's pause for a moment. Which one of these mistakes felt the most familiar to you? Because here's the truth. Almost all of us fall into at least one of them. And that doesn't mean you're failing or broken, it just means you're human. But here's the good news. Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you recognize these patterns, you can start breaking free from them. And when you do, you don't just remove negative thoughts, you create space for joy, gratitude, and peace to return. Remember, happiness after 70 isn't about having a perfect life with no problems. It's about shifting your mindset, embracing the present, and giving yourself permission to enjoy life fully right now. So my encouragement for you is this. Choose just one small change from today's video. Maybe it's writing down your worries instead of letting them spin in your head. Maybe it's calling a friend instead of isolating. Maybe it's simply telling yourself, "I'm enough," when self-criticism starts to creep in. Over time, those little changes will create a ripple effect that transforms how you feel about yourself and your life. And if you found this helpful, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with a friend, a parent, or someone you love, because we all deserve to know that happiness, dose, and tea have an age limit. If you'd like more tips on living a healthier, happier life after 60 and 70, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next video. And I'd love to hear from you. Which negative thought and mistake do you struggle with the most, and which solution are you going to try first? Leave a comment below, because your story might encourage someone else who really needs it today. Until next time, remember, your best years don't have to be behind you. They can still be ahead if you choose to live with awareness, courage, and joy.